Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Caleb Likes Books. Today I have another book review for you, and that is for Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This is a book that's pretty popular on BookTube, as well as I think it's pretty popular over on Book Talk and things like that. One that I heard a lot about over the last couple years back when I first started kind of checking out BookTube. This book was pretty new at the time, I believe, and was getting a lot of attention, and ever since then I have been wanting to read it. And a few months ago my friend Ryan sent this alongside a few other books to me, and so I figured that I would read this one because I've been really wanting to, but I just hadn't gotten it until then, and I wanted to read it now because it's pretty short, and I was like, you know, it'll be a quick read, and by all accounts was an enjoyable book to a lot of people, and so I figured it would take me a very short time to read, and it did. It took me, I think, like 3 reading sessions, or 3 or 4 reading sessions. I finished this basically in a handful of days, and I enjoyed it a lot. This is one of my favorite books I've read this year, easily. Like, it could be my favorite. I don't know if it is, but it is definitely in the running for absolutely one of my top books of the year so far. I absolutely had an amazing time with this book. I have many good things to say about it, a couple of little nitpicks as well, but mostly good things to say about this book. This book basically is a book about this orc named Viv, who was like a bounty hunter, I believe, who decides she's gonna walk away from that life and open a coffee shop in this city, this fantasy city that has never heard of coffee before. And that's just such a strange but fun premise, and the book very much delivers on that. This is often labeled and marketed as a cozy fantasy book, which going in, I hadn't really read much like that. I think the closest I've read to something like that is like Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson, which I think you could classify as a cozy fantasy, but that was pretty much all I've read that was like this. And so I was very curious what I think of it, and I think that that label absolutely fits this book. The way, like, if I were to describe this book in one word, it is comforting, I think, or relaxing, or something along those lines. This is one of those books for me, especially, that I feel like, you know, sometimes you read a book or watch a movie or, you know, listen to a song or whatever it may be at like the right time in your life. And I think that was the case for me with this book. I have had an extremely stressful and chaotic couple of months, and things are winding down now, but reading this book like at the tail end of that, as things were starting to calm down, was just such a delightful experience, because it really is like just such a relaxing, comforting, like the way that I described this in my review that I wrote on Goodreads is it's like a warm hug in book form. And so I think that the label of cozy fantasy absolutely applies. It is a book that is just such a joy and a delight to read. It's pretty low on conflict for the most part. There is some conflict in this book. There are some things, like some bad things that happen in this book, but they are generally, you know, not the focus. This book largely is focused on characters, on dialogue, on these characters, Viv, as well as a couple others that she recruits, building this coffee shop and kind of going about that and things like that. And it is just such a fun book to read. The story itself is, you know, fairly predictable, I think, but done well, where a lot of it, like I said, is about these characters opening this coffee shop, and just kind of seeing how things progress is just a lot of fun. Seeing them come up with new things to add that they can serve the customers, seeing the way that the coffee shop evolves over time, you know, going from, you know, just her and this one other person running it to also having these other people involved who are able to bring their own talents and their own things like that into, you know, the business. The characters themselves, this book has a decently sized cast of characters, and they are all really enjoyable to be with. They all have fairly distinctive personalities. You know, you have Viv, you have her assistant, whose name is just not coming to me at the moment, but then you also have like Thimble, who's like, I think this little rat person, who is just super fun, as well as several other characters. And all of them, just seeing them interact, spending time with these characters, it's just a fun time to spend time with all of these characters. And I really like the characters in this book. They're not like super duper like backstory developed, like super deep detailed characters, but they're all good. They're all well done. They all have unique personalities to them that are fun to see interact with one another. I also really just liked the writing of this book. I liked the writing style. The prose of this book was well done in general. But that really is like, I just loved just reading this. The experience of reading this book was just such fun to me. The world building is pretty low as well. There is a little bit, but it's not very in depth or anything. But I think that serves the book well. It uses it where it needs to, and kind of doesn't go super deeply into it, which I think for a book like this isn't really needed anyway. So there is that as well. I do think the book is a good length as well. Going into it, I knew it was very short, so I was like, is it gonna feel like it's, needs to be longer or anything? No, I think it maybe could have been a little bit longer, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. But I think generally it's a good length as well. It's very short, it's very quick, and it is enjoyable enough of a read that I think if you do like it, you'll go through it very quickly. As far as my couple nitpicks that I have with this book, of which there are only two things, and neither of them I think are very major. The first thing is there is some strong language in this book, which is ordinarily not the kind of thing I'd point out because I really don't mind that very much. However, I do think it conflicted a little bit with the tone of the book to me. It felt like it didn't completely fit. It felt like something like that, you would get in a book that is much, maybe not like a lot darker or something, but, certainly not the kind of tone that this book is going for. I don't think that was entirely necessary. It's not something that really bothered me that much, but it did take me out of the book a little bit here and there. So that's like a small thing that just, I felt like didn't quite fit. The only other major issue that I have is the way that the climax of the book is handled, which is fine. It's fairly predictable. It is something that is, I think, foreshadowed pretty well so that, like, I kind of had an idea of where things were going. So that itself is not really an issue, but just the way that it was executed, I think, could have been a little bit better. It felt like it kind of sped through the climax a little too much and didn't give it enough time for it to really hit and really land. So I think that adding a little bit more to that section of the book would have been good. It was like somewhere around, I think, 200-ish pages in or so, somewhere in there. I think if it had been extended just a little bit more, had like the 180, 190 pages, whatever, that it has, and then spend just a little extra time, rather than the climax basically being over in a couple of chapters, making it, 3, 4, 5 chapters, just extend it out a little bit more. I think it would have been a little more effective, and then have the end of the book happen. I think that might have been a little bit better, but that really isn't that big of an issue for me either. I also think, given what I just said about the tone of the book, I think that it's possible that having the climax of the book last too much longer might have also conflicted with the tone. So I don't know. That's just, the impression that I got as I was reading it. But overall, though, I loved this book a lot. I had an amazing time with it. I loved all the characters. I loved seeing the story unfold. It was just very pleasant, very comforting, very relaxing. This was one of those books where, especially also like I said, stress, a lot of stuff going on the last couple of months. Also had a little bit of a reading slump due to that, as well as several of the books that I read recently. Some of them I've really enjoyed, but a few of them also have been just not really that exciting to me, and things like that. And this book was just, it felt almost refreshing to be really, really excited to pick up this book every time I went to read it. And every time I had to put it down, because that's the only time I would stop reading it, is when I had to put it down, I wished I could have kept going. So that was just fun, and I just loved this book a lot. I thought it was amazing. It's definitely not going to be for everyone, definitely very different and unique, and probably for, I would think, a particular kind of reader. But if it does work for you, I think you will really enjoy it, and I would highly recommend giving it a try. So as far as a rating out of 10 that I would give Legends and Lattes, I would give this a 10 out of 10. Like, I just love this book through and through, all the way through, from beginning to end, page 1 to page 250 or whatever it was. I just love this book a lot, and it is definitely one of my favorite reads of the year so far. So that's pretty much it for my review. Let me know in the comments if you have read Legends and Lattes, and if so, what you thought of it. If you also really enjoyed it, if you didn't like it so much, whatever it may be, let me know. I know there is also, I think, a prequel book as well as a sequel coming out soon, but the prequel's already out. If you've read the prequel, let me know what you thought of that as well. I really want to get that, and I really want to get the sequel when it comes out, so that will be going very highly on my priority list for books to buy. So hopefully I can get that in my hands relatively soon. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.